Welcome to another episode of the Michal Yardney Podcast. Today I want to share with you Warren Buffett's theory of the Ovarian lottery in life. He's one of the most successful investors of all time, so why not get some lessons from the great Warren Buffett? But before I do, I just want to explain, if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you know I usually have a guest on the show. But sometimes I just like having a chat, me and you alone. And that's what today's show is, where I'm going to give you my thoughts on this amazing concept that I learned about from Warren Buffett. In my mind, it's a powerful reminder about the importance of humility, gratitude, and the responsibilities of your life. So it's not going to be about property per se, but again, this podcast is about property, money, and success in life. And by the way, they're not all exactly related, but let's talk about how you can be more successful by being more grateful. So let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Michal Yardney Podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment, and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michal Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
So as I said in the introduction, I want to talk a bit about Warren Buffett's one of his most compelling concepts about the lottery of life, sometimes called the Ovarian lottery. It was based on a talk that he gave to a group of students at the University of Florida many, many years ago. And let me just share with you what he said, and then let's have a little bit of a talk about it. And Warren Buffett said, "I've been extraordinarily lucky." He said, I use this example and I'll take a minute or two because I think it's worth thinking about. He said, let's assume it was 24 hours before you were born and a genie came to you and the genie said, hey, you look very promising, but I've got a big problem. I've got to design the world in which you're going to live in. So the genie said, I've decided it's too tough. So I'm leaving it to you. You design it. So you end up saying to the genie, I can design anything? There must be a catch. And the genie says, yes, there is a catch. You don't know if you're going to be born black or white, rich or poor, male or female, infirm or able-bodied, bright or retarded. All you know is you're going to take one ball from a barrel of 5.8 billion balls. Now, I guess that number was chosen by Warren Buffett because that was the total population of the world back then when he talked about this. So Warren Buffett, in his talk to the students, said, and you're going to participate in the Ovarian lottery. And that's going to be the most important thing in your life because that's what's going to control whether you're born here or in Afghanistan, whether you're born with an IQ of 130 or an IQ of 70. It's going to determine a whole lot. What type of world are you going to design? The genie said. So I guess this term Ovarian lottery refers to our nationality, our gender, our race, our level of health, our family background. Obviously, these are important factors of which we've got no control, yet they profoundly affect our lives and the chances we have in life, don't they? So I guess where I'm coming from in my chat with you today is it's important to understand the role of luck in your success. I mean, Warren Buffett's own life story is a testament to this theory. He was born in 1939 to a reasonably affluent family in the United States, and he had access to quality education and opportunities that wouldn't have been available to him if he was born, I don't know, at a different time or a different place. And he acknowledges that. Actually, Warren Buffett acknowledges that his success was also influenced by being born in a predominantly male-dominated society. At that time, Warren Buffett argues that while hard work, intelligence, and determination are crucial, the initial conditions set by the Ovarian lottery of life can create significant disparities. For example, a child born in a war-torn country or in extreme poverty faces hurdles that a child born in a stable and affluent environment does not. Now, Pam and I have been very lucky and travelled to many countries in the world, and I remember a couple of years ago we did a cruise down the west coast of Africa where we visited a number of very, very poor countries. And, you would go to these villages, and I've seen it in other parts of the world as well, these very poor parts of the world where people really, what chance have they got to become more affluent when the village is poor and the system in which they live seems to me, from an outsider's point, to be very corrupt as well. So I guess we've got to be thankful, grateful that if you're listening to this podcast, you already have won the Ovarian lottery. Buffett believes that the era we were born into plays a crucial role. He's often remarked that there was never a better time to be alive today. Now, I know you can say there are geopolitical problems, there are economic problems, there are political problems here and overseas, but I agree with him. Despite these challenges and all the problems the world face, and they are, the advances in technology, in healthcare, and the overall quality of life are unprecedented. Warren points out that, I've called him Warren, I don't know him well enough to do that, but please excuse me. Buffett, I guess, points out that the average person today enjoys a better standard of life than even the wealthiest individuals of previous centuries. Just think about it. And this perspective is a reminder of the progress humanity's made, but also the potential for further improvement. So, again, the Ovarian lottery theory has profound implications of how we view success and responsibility. Warren Buffett argues that those who are fortunate enough to draw a favourable ticket in the lottery of life have a moral obligation to help those who are less fortunate. And I agree with him. This belief underpins much of his philanthropic work, including his decision to give away the majority of his fortune to charitable causes. Buffett believes he's got a perspective that encourages a sense of empathy and social responsibility. You, as a listener to this podcast, probably don't know a lot about me, but we give a lot to charity. I don't make a big fuss about it. I'm not famous like Warren Buffett, so nobody really knows what we do. But every couple of years, my wife Pam runs a charity ball for a number of organisations, and there's other ways we give to a lot of charities. I believe when you reach the top, it's important to help other people along the way as well. So I genuinely appreciate what I've managed to achieve. But I think one of the things that comes out of this concept of the Ovarian lottery, it challenges the notion that your success, my success, is solely the result of individual efforts and merits, and it highlights the importance of structural factors and collective actions in addressing social inequality. And that's one of the things I don't like what I'm seeing at the moment in Australia, that there's always going to be rich and poor. There's always going to be A-grade students and B and C-grade students. But I don't like the social unrest that's currently happening with the disparity of the rich getting so much richer than the average Australian. And I believe that's one of the reasons why I give this sort of information regularly, twice a week in my podcast and in my blogs, to help other people become financially independent as well. I think one of the practical applications of Warren Buffett's theory is in the realm of public policy and philanthropy. If we acknowledge that much of our success is due to luck, it follows we should strive to create systems that provide better opportunities for those that are less fortunate than us. And in my mind, I guess this can be achieved through investment in education, in healthcare and social services that help level the playing field. Again, most of you listening to this or watching this are in Australia, and boy, are we very lucky with the healthcare and the education system. But there are still people that are homeless here. That shouldn't be happening in Australia. There are still people who are requiring healthcare. But Warren Buffett's own philanthropic efforts, alongside those of Bill Gates through the Giving Pledge, aim to address some of those structural inequalities in the very poor countries. They focus on providing resources to improve public health, education, economic opportunities globally. So while many people make fun of the rich people or say they get tax breaks and it's not fair, most charities are very, very dependent upon the wealthy. And so most of the wealthy people I know are very generous. Sure, there are some greedy wealthy people, but boy, there's a lot of greedy poor people as well. So let me ask you a question. If you could put your ball back in the lottery of life, like the genie, if that genie actually came to you, and then you took out at random 100 other balls, and you had to just pick one of those balls that you picked out of that big collection, would you actually put your ball back in, or would you say, no, I actually don't want to take a chance at picking one in those 100. I'm happy with what I've got. Now, of those 100, the majority of them would have you living in an underdeveloped country. Half of them you'd have below average intelligence. Half, I guess, you'd have above average intelligence. So would you really want to put your ball back? I think not. I don't think you would. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you're saying to yourself, I'm in the luckiest 1% of the world right now. So Warren Buffett's theory of the Ovarian lottery really offers a personal lens through which to view our lives. It encourages us to reflect our own circumstances and the factors that have contributed to our success and failures. I don't take that for granted. In my mindset message that I have every week in every show with the Michal Yardney Podcast, I talk a lot about the importance of gratitude. I guess this reflection of the Ovarian lottery helps foster this sense of gratitude for the advantages we've received and the commitment to use our resources and opportunities to make a positive impact. I was born overseas. My parents chose to make a big, risky move to come to Australia when I was the age of 3. I'm so lucky that they made that decision, and I do believe I live in the best country in the world at the best time in history. And I do understand the role luck's had in my success, and by recognizing that, I have more compassion for others, which, to be honest, earlier in my life, I didn't have as much until I learned to be grateful. I mean, sometimes I thought other people were crazy when they made decisions that just didn't make sense to me, but they're making the best decisions they can make with all the information they know. So I believe if you understand this, it should reduce your tendency to judge those who are less successful than you, and it should give you the willingness to support policies and initiatives to promote social equity. That's the sort of country we want to live in. So Warren Buffett's theory of the lottery of life is a powerful reminder of the role luck's had in shaping your destiny, my destiny, our destiny. I suppose it's easy to feel extremely lucky if your name is near the top of the richest people in the world list like Warren Buffett. But I too have been lucky in my parents, and having come to this country, lucky in my marriage, lucky in my good health, lucky in my career. I found something I really enjoy and I'm good at. Lucky to live in a time and place when I could follow my passion for investing in real estate. Lucky to live in a time and place where I've got considerable freedom and it's not been wrecked by war. All this challenges the myth of self-made individuals and highlights the importance of empathy, gratitude, and social responsibility. By recognizing the advantages we receive through the Ovarian lottery, we can better appreciate our own lives and be grateful. We should also become more committed, as I said, to help others less fortunate. In a world where the gap between the rich and the poor keeps widening, in my mind, Warren Buffett's insights give us a path to being more equitable and more compassionate. And I think and I hope our politicians are going to invest in systems and policies to provide opportunities for all. And that way we can ensure everyone has a fair chance to succeed, regardless of the ticket they drew in the Ovarian lottery. So as I said when I started our little chat together today, it wasn't about property or money. I guess it wasn't really even about success. On the other hand, in my mind, it is important to be grateful, because if you have a big property portfolio or lots of wealth in other areas of a successful career, if you don't have gratitude, it's not worth, all the rest isn't worth anything. Thanks for taking the time to listen. And in a moment, I'm going to share my mindset message with you that I do every week, which actually is one of the more popular segments from the lessons, the messages people leave. But remember, you won the lottery. Now, in today's podcast, as I explained, it's just me and you talking, and in a moment I'm going to share with you a great lesson I learned from Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that has made me work more effectively and efficiently, and I'm going to share that lesson with you. Now, remember, I said this isn't a big session about property in today's podcast, but I guess you're listening to this podcast because you are interested in property. But if you're like most investors at the moment, you're probably struggling with a whole lot of things. feeling uncertain about where the property market is. In fact, most of the investors I speak to are in the same boat. They're bombarded with conflicting information, and the challenges are real. What's going to happen? I mean, there's this information overload. We're flooded with news about the economy, inflation, interest rates, the housing market. It's important to keep up to speed with it all, but too many opinions and there's too little clarity. And that's making people very worried about making the wrong move. And part of that is often because they actually don't have a clear plan. If you have a solid plan, you know what you should do and you know what you shouldn't do. So my suggestion to you is put together a strategic property plan, because as you've heard me say in previous podcasts, the property you eventually buy should be the physical manifestation of a whole lot of decisions you make and make in the right order. But it's really hard to do on your own. So why not have a chat with my team at Metropole? There'll be a link in the show notes, but go to metropole.com.au and let us build you a strategic plan. Buying a property is not a plan. Doing research is not a plan, because you see, a plan's going to help you define your financial goals, assess whether they're realistic, because we use very powerful software to help our clients plan to become the people they plan to become, and the software helps them track their progress, maximize their wealth creation, and also our team helps identify risks that our clients may not have considered. And so therefore, why not put yourself in the position where you're more likely to outperform the averages? A recent audit of the results of our clients showed they're 7.3 times more likely than the average investor to own 6 or more properties. Go to metropole.com.au and have a complimentary wealth discovery chat with one of our wealth strategists. Whether you're a beginner and want to get started in the right way, or whether you're already an experienced investor and you just want a second opinion, we're much more than another buyer's agent. We help our clients safely generate, grow their wealth and pass it on to future generations. We're big enough to tip the scales in your favour, but small enough to care. Go to metropole.com.au.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
In my mindset message today, I want to talk about the big rocks in your life. What are big rocks? Put simply, your big rocks are your priorities. They're the tasks, projects, goals you absolutely must accomplish. But if you're like most people, you're going to be very busy. But how productive are you actually? Successful people always seem to find a way to keep a focus on what's most important, while the average person tends to run into one of 3 problems in my mind. First of all, they've got too many priorities. Think about it. If you've got 30 priorities that are important to you, if everything's important to you, you really have no priorities, do you? Secondly, they don't care and can't differentiate between truly important priorities in their life. And thirdly, for any number of reasons, they let other less important things get in the way of focusing on what really matters. So what I want to share with you in this mindset message is setting priorities, your big rocks. But that can actually be hard. Look, we've all got different priorities, but before we get into how to organize them, let me tell you the big rock story. It goes a bit like this. One day a teacher was speaking to a group of students and she pulled out a large jar and set it on the table, and she produced about a dozen big rocks and placed them one at a time in the jar. And when the jar was filled to the top and no more rocks could fit in, she asked, "Is this jar full?" And all the students said, "Yes." "Really?" she asked. "Let's see." So she took out some gravel and dumped the gravel inside there. She shook the jar, causing the pieces to fall in between the spaces between the big rocks. And she asked the students again, "Is the jar full?" Now, class was catching on, so they said, "Probably not," or one of them said, "Probably not." And she said, "Very good." So she brought out a bucket of sand and dumped the sand in and went in between the spaces between the rocks and the gravel. And then she asked, "Is the jar full?" "No," the class shouted. "Hey, excellent," said the teacher, and she grabbed a jug of water and poured it in until the jar was filled to the brim. The teacher looked intently back at the students and asked, "What's the point of this illustration?" And one student said, "You can always fit in more things in your life if you really want to." And the teacher said, "Look, that's true, but that's not really the point of the illustration. The demonstration teaches us that if you don't put the big rocks in first, you'll never get them into the jar at all." So my question to you in this mindset session of my podcast is, what are the big rocks in your life? Maybe it's time with loved ones. Maybe it's your faith. Maybe it's your education. Maybe it's your dreams, your career, a worthy cause, teaching or mentoring others. So the teacher concluded by repeating the important message, and I want to share it with you. Remember to put these big rocks in first, or you'll never get them in at all. So what does this mean for you? Big rocks are things like your bucket list items, your non-negotiable goals, your dreams, your true desires, things that you can do that are going to make your business more successful, your career more successful, your investing more successful, things that are going to fulfill you, things that you can do to make yourself healthier or happier. And the pebbles, they're things that you love to do or need to do, but they aren't as crucial to your happiness, success, or fulfillment. I don't know, maybe it's projects around the house or watching the football or mahjong lessons. And the sand, well, the sand's the mundane day-to-day tasks like checking emails and, well, I was going to say walking the dog, but that's not true. That's important for me for lots of reasons with my daily walks with Lincoln, because it also helps my health and my relaxation. Interestingly, that's when I listen to podcasts. But mundane things as the sand, like paying the bills or grocery shopping, they've got to be done, but they're not the big rocks. And if you do those and don't leave room for the big rocks, you're going to be in trouble. And the jar, well, I guess that's your life, your time, your energy, your budget, your resources. By the way, you only get one jar, and these are all different for everybody. One person's big rock may be another person's sand. So make sure you got these big rocks in your calendar or in your to-do list as not only urgent, but important. Otherwise, you're going to get sidetracked. Most people don't they don't have the same priorities as others. For some people, things don't seem urgent, not necessary, not important, but in big rock terms, they fill their jars with lots of pebbles, lots of sand, but no big rocks at all. I see people like that all the time. Remember, I said you only get one jar. You don't have unlimited time, endless money, untold resources, energy to do whatever you want to fit in your day, to fit into your jar. So my message to you today is say yes to your big rocks first. Put your big rocks in the jar first, then your pebbles and then your sand. This way you may have prioritized your big rocks and you're going to complete those before you move on to what else seems actually important or urgent, but in reality probably isn't as important a task. So here's how I put this concept into action. I make a list of my big rocks, 6 of them, my pebbles, 10 of them, and my sand, and I ask myself the question, what's on my bucket list? What's on my non-negotiables in life? What's the highest and best use of my time? And I put the big rocks in my calendar first before someone else grabs the time. So then I start filling it with pebbles and sand. So my holidays away with Pam, even for next year, are already blocked out. The time I set aside each week, twice a week, to visit my children and my grandchildren, they're blocked out in my calendar. They cannot be moved. My morning walk with Lincoln along the beach is blocked out. There's no room to do anything else at that time of the day. And my highest and, I guess, best business tasks like writing, like recording the podcast, they're locked in my calendar. By the way, I have left time for incoming and last-minute pebbles and sand as well, but I've learned that what gets scheduled gets done, and what doesn't get scheduled, well, to me, it doesn't get done. I don't know how it works in your life. I schedule my business big rocks in the morning. I know that's when I'm most efficient, and that's the first thing in the morning. That's how I work, and I think a lot of people are that way. And also, last thing in the afternoon, I'm actually quite efficient then. I know I'm not as efficient or creative in the middle of the day, but we're all different, aren't we? I've also learned the principle of getting important things done first in the day, getting them out of the way. And once I've got them done, then I can get on with my day. So I've learned to ask myself, is this a big rock? When I need to decide how best to spend my time, my energy, my money, I ask myself this important question. Is this a big rock? If it is, I'll make sure I find time to put it in the jar. Now, I know this concept is simple. Don't underplay it because it's very profound. I learned it from Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, who taught me the difference between being busy and being productive. It's not about getting more stuff done. It's about getting the most important things done. So, to finish off this slightly longer mindset message for you today, my question is, what are your big rocks in your life, your career, your relationships, your wealth journey, and your health? And for each of these big rocks, are they in place? Are you putting them in the jar first? If not, are you working to put them in place? Or have you neglected them? Because if you don't consciously work on your big rocks, you're never going to get to them. Thank you for spending the last little while with me. I hope you got some benefit from this show. But before you move on to the next podcast you're going to listen to, let me remind you I have another show that I produce once a week with leading demographer Simon Kirstenmacher. We call that Demographics Decoded, where Simon and I unveil the trends that are going to shape your future. In my mind, this is a must-listen to podcast for anyone interested in property investment, but also for business people and entrepreneurs. So if you don't currently subscribe to Demographics Decoded, just please stop for a second and subscribe on your podcast app where you're listening to this, or on YouTube. And of course, if you don't subscribe to this show, the Michal Yardney Podcast, why not click the link that says follow or subscribe wherever you're listening right now. So twice a week, you're going to get benefit from my guests and me. Oh, and I'd like to ask you a little favour, please. If you did enjoy today's show and you know somebody who would also benefit, please tell them about the Michal Yardney Podcast and Demographics Decoded. There's a share button on every podcast app. On Apple Podcast, there are 3 little buttons at the top of the player. Or just tell them about it. Just have a chat with them. Now, I hope you're going to be doing them a favour, and you're definitely going to be doing me a favour in my quest to help as many people as possible to become financially literate. And by the way, I've got a special bonus for you. As my way of saying thank you for subscribing, just go to podcastbonus.com.au. There'll be a link in the show notes, podcastbonus.com.au, where I've got a bunch of ebooks and reports. It's just my way of saying thank you for taking the time to listen. And remember, the information that we give you in this podcast is general information, not specific information about your personal circumstances, because we don't know about them. But if you do want specific information, you can always have a chat with my team at Metropole. Go to metropole.com.au. If you really want to learn more, you can always listen to the previous podcast, the many episodes we've already published. Just go back to the old episodes, which each have lessons about property investment, success, and money. Once again, thanks for listening to today's show.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michal Yardney Podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michal Yardney Podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michal's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michal, but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?